Rabbi Smith, did you see the card that I sent you with the middle of the Tichusa?
Yeah. I didn't go on the site yet, but I saw.
I sent it to you by WhatsApp.
Yeah.
In the Daf Yomi shit.
Okay. Reb Naftali, are we on Lamed Tes Mid Beis?
Yeah, about halfway down.
Amar,
Yeah.
let me mute. Okay. Okay, so we're going to start on Lamed Tes Mid Beis. That's 39b. The words Amar Mar, it's middle of the page, approximately middle of the page. Thank Hashem that we're able to learn every day. And in the schos of our learning, we should have the Beis Mikdash immediately. Okay, Amar Mar. Amar Mar is when we go back to discuss a brisa, discussing a something that was said by Tanoim, that we said in passing. We go back to analyze it. Amar Lahem, he said to them, this is referring to Rebbe, this is, if someone says, I've given up hope from getting back my Eved, what's the din? Rebbe says, the only way that he can get freed was if he has a document. That's what Rebbe said. Then, in other words, the redemption is not enough. He needs to have an actual document. Okay. Problem is, Tanya, we have another brisa that says, Rabbi Eimer, what about the other statement that Rebbe said, that if a person was makdish his eved, he consecrated his eved. So we had a discussion if how he's makdish all his property was the example. Makdish all his property, and amongst them were amongst the property were slaves. So the first opinion said that the slaves have to be sold outside, and then they could be redeemed. And Rebbe said that the slave himself can redeem himself. And it's as if he's being sold by giving the redemption money to the Gizbar, which is the caretaker. So here we see a contradiction in the words of Rebbe. The first statement of Rebbe is that you need an actual document. The second statement of Rebbe is that you can redeem with money, and the slave can go free just with money. So the Gemara says, Hachi Kamar, what it really means to say is, you have an option, either money or a document. So what was the case where Rebbe said, that there's only one option, there's the only option is a document. Says Vahai, that case, that fellow that was made ownerless, Pakale Kaspe, the value of him has already left because he was made ownerless. And so therefore over there you can only have one option, you only have the document option, because he's not really owned by the owner. So the only way you can set him free would be to actually write a document and not to have him redeemed.
Through money, is that
redemption?
That has nothing to do with consecration, right? You want to sell him or
Yeah, if he was consecrated, so then he could get redeemed, and when he gets redeemed, he goes free.
But there was, I think there was halacha
to redeem, to free a slave, right? But for certain reasons, we said it was acceptable. Now we say lafuke mihatana, and it's coming to exclude what it said in a certain brisa. The Tanya was said in a brisa. Reb Shimon Aimer Mishum Rabbi Akiva. Here we have Reb Shimon directly quoting his teacher Rabbi Akiva. Yachol yehi kesef geimer ba. Maybe money can complete the freedom, just like a document completes the freedom. That payment of money for the slave could actually make the slave go free, just like a document can make the slave go free. Talmud Laimar, the pasuk says no, it doesn't work like that. You're going to need an actual document. The hefta lane iftasa. Okay, what we're talking about over here is a shifcha charufa. Shifcha charufa is a non-Jewish maidservant that was set free by one of the masters. She had two masters. One of them set her free. So now she's half slave and half free. Who can she marry? She can marry an Eved Ivri, because an Eved Ivri, a Jewish slave, is allowed to marry a Jew. He's also allowed to marry a Shifcha Kananis. He's also allowed to marry a non-Jewish maidservant. So comes along another man and has relations with this Shifcha Charufa. She's designated for a Jewish slave, so she's partially married, and then she has this sin.
She's not Jewish at all.
She's half Jewish.
She is. I thought the person who's marrying her is half.
Well, every time
Oh, then they're half Jewish. Remember, there's a
a Canaan slave is already half Jewish. Now she's half free, so she's fully Jewish. Half of her is fully Jewish, and half of her is half Jewish. It's not a Hebrew maidservant. Where did you get that? Oh, yeah, in the case before, we were dealing with, one second, a Hebrew maidservant? Slave, all with regard to his master. Where are you saying that? Where are you saying the Hebrew maidservant? Okay. So Reb Shimon says in the name of Rabbi Akiva that how can we get her fully free? Yachal ye kesef geimerba. Maybe you can get her fully free with money. Paying money completes emancipation of human maidservant, just as a bill of manumission completes her emancipation. I'm not sure if that's really what it's talking about. I'm not sure. Talmud Laima, the pasuk said, but just like a document would complete her emancipation. Talmud Laima v'heftalein iftasa. That we're talking about this woman that was a shifcha charufa. She's half freed. Heftalein iftasa means her freedom wasn't completed. She wasn't completely redeemed. But no, that arufa means the neck is broken. Harufa, which means designated. Oira kala parsha kula. The conclusion of that entire section is the leichel pasa, that she wasn't redeemed. She wasn't freed. Pasa would mean freed with a document. Laimalach is coming to tell you shtar geimer ba v'ena kesef geimer ba, that the only way she can really get free is with a actual document. Okay, so what we're saying now is that what Rebbe said before is that you have two options. Sometimes you can set a slave free with money. Sometimes you can set a slave free with a document. You have those two options. This is coming to exclude what Reb Shimon says, name of Rabbi Akiva, that you only have one option, and that's that you need a document. Amar Rami Bar Chama, Amar Rab Nachman. Rami Bar Chama says in the name of Rab Nachman, Halacha Reb Shimon, halacha like Reb Shimon, it says you need an actual document. Rabbi Yesi Bar Chama, Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yesi Bar Chama says in the name of Rabbi Yochanan that ain't halacha Reb Shimon. We're not going to follow Reb Shimon. Reb Shimon doesn't always get the halacha. And Ashkechei Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak l'Rava Bar Sheilta. This is Aleph. L'Rava Bar Shilas. Rabba Bar Shilas. So Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak finds Rabba Bar Shilas or Rabba Bar Shilta. Avikoya Pischa the Beit Tefillah was standing at the entranceway of the shul. Amalei, he says to him, halacha yain halacha. What's the halacha like? Amalei, he says to him, ani yain halacha. It's not the halacha. I guess he's asking about Reb Shimon. Is the halacha like Reb Shimon? He says, I say that it's not the halacha is not like Reb Shimon, which is the way Rabbi Yochanan said. Rabbanan dasmi machuza amar. But the rabbis that came from Mechuzah, that was the city that Rav was the teacher, was the Rav. Amar Rab Zera Mishmei Rab Nachman. Rab Zera said the name of Rab Nachman, that halacha. Okay. This is always Reb Shimon by any Reb Shimon is always Reb Shimon by Yochai. Yeah. B'chiyasi l'sura, and when I went to Surah, when I came to Surah, Ashkachte l'Rab Chia bar Ravan, I found Rab Chia bar Ravan. Amalei Emily Yisi. So tell me, my friend, what happened over there that they said in Mechuzah that the halacha is like Reb Shimon? Amalei, he said to me, Amalei said to me, there was a maidservant that the master was on his deathbed. Asya Bachya Kamei. She came and she cried in front of him. Amrullah, she said to him, how long do you want this servant, this maidservant, this woman to be a slave for? Shakal Kumsa, he took off his hat. He wore his hat on his deathbed. Interesting. Shadaba, he threw it to her. Amrullah, he said, Zilkani ha, go acquire the hat and acquire yourself. This is sort of like like what they do at a wedding. You know, they make a kinyan with a gartel. You lift up the gartel. He says, lift this up and you'll acquire yourself. So Asal Kamid Rav Nachman, they came to Rav Nachman. Amalu Asal Rav Nachman says that did not work. She's still a slave. Mandachaz, the one that was watching the Savar, he understood Mishum Dalach Reb Shimon, because Allah is like Reb Shimon. And what did Reb Shimon hold? That the only way to go free was with the document. But that wasn't really what happened. It was the wrong. It was the wrong vessel. It was the wrong hat. In order for the slave to go free, you can't use the hat of the one that's giving. You have to use the hat of the recipient. It has to be like an exchange, that I'll give you this and I'll pick up something of yours, but not I'll give you this and you pick up something of mine. It has to be like an exchange.
But once he's given it to her, it's hers. So now it is an exchange.
No, he's giving her herself, and he's giving her also.
No, first he gives her the hat. Now
Yeah.
she owns something. Now she
Yeah.
gives him back the hat in exchange for
No,
herself.
yeah, but she didn't give him back the hat. She said, go acquire the hat, and along with the hat, you'll acquire yourself.
Okay.
That's not how it works. That would you can only do things like that with property. That along with acquiring the property, you'll acquire something that's on it. This is not Reb Shimon. This was a slave master that was just giving a hat to his maidservant. They came in front of Reb Nachman. We said that he didn't really know how to do it, so it didn't work. Now you can ask that what's the problem, because the Shchib Meirah, whatever he says, we try to fulfill. The words of the Shchib Meirah are as if they're written and sealed and given over. I said, yeah, but that's only if he would have done it right. But here he didn't do it correctly, so it doesn't work. Amar Rav Shmuel bar Achise, Amar Rav Hamnuna Saba, Amar Rav Yitzchak bar Ashiyan, Amar Rav Huna, Amar Rav Hamnuna. Some take out Hamnuna. Some just say it's Amar Rav Huna, Amar Rav. Okay. Halacha Reb Shimon. That the halacha is like Reb Shimon. Sounds impressive. However, the Gemara says, "V'lohi ein halacha k'Reb Shimon," but however, it's not so. Really, it's ein halacha k'Reb Shimon. Okay. Halacha is not like Reb Shimon. Amar Reb Zera, Amar Reb Chanina, Amar Rav Ashi, Amar Rebbe. Now, in my Gemara, I have a little note that in the Munich manuscript, they took out Amar Rav Ashi, and it would go like this: Amar Reb Zera, Amar Reb Chanina, Amar Rebbe. Reb Chanina was a student of Rebbe. Reb Zera was a few generations off from Reb Chanina, but Rav Ashi is definitely out of order here. And it goes like this: Let's say a slave in front of his master marries a Jewish girl, gives her a ring. The master didn't protest. The rule is Yatzel L'Cheres. How could the master allow this to take place unless he was agreeing that he's being set free? Amalei Rabbi Yochanan, Kol Kach Yesh Biyadcha, you have such a halacha in the name of Rebbe? I don't have that. I have Bani Shaina. What I have is a case of Shtar Eresin L'Shevchasai. If there's a master that writes a marriage contract to his own maidservant, Meir Eimer Mekudeshes, Meir says she's set free and she's married to him. The Chacham says she's not free and she's not married to him. Okay, which is a little bit different than what he had. That was just something that took place in front of him. And here Rabbi Yochanan's story is where he's actually the one that's performing the act. The Gemara says, Kida Amar Rabba bar Rav Shila Kisharabbi Nechle Tefillin. We're talking about over there where the master put tefillin on the slave, I guess before the wedding. So Hachanami Kisharabbi Hisi Isha. That's two different stories. We have another story where the rabbi, the master, put tefillin on him, and over there we consider him free. Over here, we're talking about that it wasn't just where the slave gave the ring to a woman, a Jewish girl, in front of the master, but it's actually the shidduch was made by the master. The master set them up. Yeah. Right. 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 Yeah, but that's not the main point over here. The main point is not there's a male slave and a female slave. The main point over here is the first case was there was a slave that marries a woman and the master is watching. The next case was the master marries a slave woman, not that he's watching. He's the active participant. All right. So it turns out that one of them is a male, one of the cases is a male slave, the other one's a female slave, but the point wasn't the male female. The point was is he active or is he passive? Well, we're talking about over here, and even in the case where he was passive, he wasn't really passive. He was the one that made the shidduch. So he was active there as well. He was the one that set them up. So obviously he was freeing the slave in order for him to marry the Jewish woman. When he marries his maidservant, so the Chachamim say he's not married. And when his slave marries a Jewish girl, we say that he is married. We're talking about over here where he says, "Si'i boy, biskachi boy." It says, how do they translate "Si'i boy"? Take this or go out with this. I guess. Become emancipated with this and get married with this. Now, Reb Meir holds Yesh B'Lashon Hazel Lashon Shichur. When he says his skadshi boy, that expression of Hareyat Mikudeshes, that's considered. He's talking about he's marrying this woman. He's marrying this maidservant. and he's saying Harayat Mekudeshas, that's actually an expression of freedom, of emancipation, which means you should become eligible to marry me, which means that she becomes free. Rabbanan Savri, the Rabbanan hold, Ein b'lashon hazeh lashon shikha. That is not an expression of emancipation.
Whoa.
And so therefore, she's still a slave and it doesn't work. Okay. What is that? Oh, about this consecrated? Yeah. Very interesting. Yeah, you hear that from Daniel? Is Daniel here? I'll call him later. I'm Rabbi Shua ben Levi. Rabbi Shua ben Levi says, "Evet sheniach tefillin b'fnei rabbi." If there's a slave that puts on tefillin in front of the master, yatsa l'cheirus. Master didn't stop him, so that means the master's agreeing that he's going free. What's the big deal? Because tefillin is a mitzvah sasei man grama. It's a positive command that's time bound, and women and slaves are not obligated in that. So if he's doing it, it means that he's actually going free. Okay. No, because tefillin is not is something that no one is obligated in the slave wearing tefillin. Making the minyan, there were 9 people there that needed a minyan. So for a mitzvah, they freed the slave so that the slave should now be part of the minyan. The freeing of the slave helped that they now have a minyan. But if there's a guy that's not wearing tefillin, he's not Jewish. He doesn't need to wear tefillin. Right? It doesn't help anyone for a non-Jew to wear tefillin. It's a secondary. It's not a major sin. It's not done. Okay, it would only be done if the master was agreeing to free him.
We free him on the condition that he becomes a slave again after the it's over.
I don't think so. You can't go back. Yeah.
I heard some women used to wear tefillin.
Oh, she's daughter.
Ashi's daughters? Oh.
No one since then. Involved with
Okay. Meisvei, the Gemara has a question. Love a menu rabbi. What does that mean? He borrowed from him. Rabbi apotropos. The master made him into an apotropos, the caretaker over his property, which means that he's considering him a free person. Or the slave put tefillin in front of the master. Or he gets an aliyah and he reads 3 psukim in front of the master. He doesn't go free. So why do you tell me before? If he puts on tefillin, he goes free. That was not when he put on tefillin. That's because the master put the tefillin on him. It looked like a bar mitzvah. He was setting him free by putting on the tefillin. It wasn't that he put on the tefillin. Yasser Rav Dimi Amar Rabbi Yochanan. When Rav Dimi came, Rav Dimi was the traveler, and he came and he said statements over in the name of Rabbi Yochanan. He said, Misha Amar B'Shas Misasei Ploines Shevchasi. Someone said on his deathbed, giving out instructions. He said, my maidservant, so-and-so, Maria, Al Yishtabdaba La'achar Maisi. Don't work her so hard after I pass away. So Kaifan as a Yarshin v'Kaifan Laget Shecher. Because that was his request. And the mitzvah to fulfill the request of someone on his deathbed. So they forced the inheritors to write a document to free her. Amr Lafan of Rabami Rabasi, so Rabami and Rabasi tell to Rabbi Yochanan, they were students by Rabbi Yochanan. They said, Rabbi, you don't admit that her children should still be slaves? Maybe, how do you know what the master meant when he said don't work her so hard? How do you know he meant to free her? Maybe just meant give her light jobs. Yosef Rav Shmuel Bar Yehuda Rabbi Yochanan. When Rav Shmuel Bar Yehuda came He said in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, Misha Aimer b'shas misasi plenish v'chasi keres ruach hasali yasla keres ruach. That this, someone said on his deathbed that such and such a maidservant was very what's how do they translate keres ruach? Gave me pleasant satisfaction. So therefore, therefore you should give her also satisfaction. So which means they forced the inheritors to let her free, to give her satisfaction. My taima mitzvah l'kaim divrei hames. Okay, so we have from Rabbi Yochanan, either it's Rabbi Dimi in the name of Rabbi Yochanan that you force the inheritors to set her free, or you have Rabbi Shmuel bar Yehuda in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, you force the inheritors to set her free. Amar Meimar. Meimar says hamafker avdai, someone that makes his slave ownerless. I say Eved ain't like takana. There's no hope. You can't set him free. The reason why you can't set him free, the Gemara is going to explain. My timer, why can't you set him free? Gufa like kanile. The body of the slave is not owned anymore because he's ownerless. The only thing is, there's two aspects to the slave. One is the monetary aspect. Another aspect is the ritual aspect, that he's not fully Jewish. The monetary aspect doesn't exist anymore. So who is the one that's left that's going to be able to remove the ritual aspect of this? There's no one left because no one owns him. So ein like takana. And he can't give over without owning him. You can't give him over the fact that he should be Jewish unless he owns him. It's supposed to be the owner that can give him that emancipation. He doesn't own him anymore. You can't get an outsider to walk in and say, okay, you're now Jewish.
When he frees him, it doesn't automatically become Jewish.
Right.
He just frees him.
If he would give him a document that was freeing him, so then he would automatically become Jewish. But he didn't actually free him to free him. He just said, I'm not your owner anymore. Which means that he doesn't have the monetary ownership of him, but he doesn't have an owner to free him. Yeah. No, this is all a non-Jewish slave. Yeah.
Does he use work?
Now that is an interesting question. Meimar said, the professor says, what about Yish? Meimar says that Hamafkir Avdai, if he makes his slave ownerless, there's no hope. But we learned yesterday, that if he says, I've given up hope from my slave, Rebbe says, that you can still write a document. The commentaries would tell us that a Meimar that says there's no hope was talking about Hefker. And Rebbe that says that there still is hope that he can still write a document was talking about Yish. What's the difference, Hefker and Yish? Yish is giving up hope of ever getting it back. Giving up hope of ever is similar to making it ownerless.
Something is Hefker, therefore it has
No.
No.
That something is Yish, therefore it's Hefker.
Say slaves runs away.
Right.
one of them that he had control. He made him happy. They stay with there and made him ownerless. The other one, he just gave up hope. As well.
So which one would be easier to write a document for? To free him? One where he gave up hope, or the one that he made him ownerless? Turns out it's exactly the opposite.
Oh,
It's the one, it's the one that he gave up hope. Yeah. So it's probably the explanation is that he still has some, but giving up hope is not an active act of taking him out of your possession. So therefore, you still have some access to him, and therefore you can still write the document. Making ownerless is more of a removal from your possession. And therefore you can't write the document anymore, because who's writing the documents? A stranger. But when you just give up hope, so it's not a full removal from your possession.
So if you're gonna make them hefker, you're gonna make
Make
them
them
ownerless,
hefker, then
you
a
should be-
Maimar says,
should
that-
write this bill
then you have to
before-
write the bill before, yeah.
before.
Yeah.
So all this underground railroad stuff, your slave runs away. You know, you got on it, he's gonna end up in free state somewhere. Yeah. So, you gave up hope. You can't free him. Oh, you're saying you could, and she can't free him.
Yes, you can free him, yeah.
But they never did. They never wrote my slave who ran away to Kentucky is free.
This is the wrong continent.
Oh, sorry. Wrong age also.
For the Jewish
owners?
slave owners.
Yeah.
No, there was never.
In Israel, my wife met a Black woman who had the wildest story. Her family had a tradition that they had been slaves of a Jewish man before the Civil War.
Wow.
And they believed or were taught that when they became free, they became Jews.
Wow.
Yeah.
And they, down to today, they still considered themselves Jews.
Wow.
Does the world consider them?
Did they need another conversion?
The point is that there
I don't know
was-
any, beyond that, I don't know the story.
Okay. I think so. They would have to go to the mikveh when they're free. Was there something from Grant that he kicked out all
Yeah,
the
he
Jews
expelled
from
those
some,
Jews for like
expelled all the Jews for a certain
like a
amount
month
of
or
time?
something.
What was that because of? Was that
The carpetbagger.
Because they were doing business.
Of the war, this
Oh.
stuff.
which side? They were helping the South.
Yeah.
No, they weren't helping anybody. They were just doing business. That's what he objected to.
Uh-huh.
They were buying and selling from north to south.
Oh. Uh-huh.
He later said he regretted it, that it was the big worst decision of his life.
Uh-huh. Interesting.
You can go to New York and spit on his grave.
Okay, where are we holding over here? We said Amemar. Yeah.
Right. Back to Myanmar.
Amalei Ravashi la Amemar, as Ravashi says to him, V'amar ulam Rabbi Yochanan, what are you telling me that you can't free him after he's became ownerless? But Ravashi says, but Ula said the name of Rabbi Yochanan, Rav Chia bar Avin, Amar Rav, echad zeh v'echad zeh yatzel acheres. We have statements. Rav said that if someone is makdish zeved, and Rabbi Yochanan says someone that's mafkir zeved, or Rabbi Yosef, or with different statements. Rab in the name of Rab, Rabbi Yosef in the name of Rab, and then comes along Rav Chia bar Avin, and he says echad zeh v'echad zeh yatzel acheres, that they both, if you make them ownerless, they go free. The only thing is you have to write a document. It's get shikhr, you just have to write a document, and you're still. You're telling me that there's no hope. Amalei, tzarech ve'ein le takana. What it said over there is that they go free and they need a document. It means that they need a document, but they can't get a document. Doesn't mean that they need and they can get. It means they need and they can't get. Okay. Ikadamri, there are those that said, Amar Ameimar, Amafkir Avdai Umeis. Someone makes a slave ownerless and then he dies, so then that slave has no hope. My time, Gufa like Kanilai. The body he doesn't own, talking about the inheritors over here. Gufay like Kanilai. So are we talking about the inheritors? I think so. And Isurahu Dekabe. Now we're talking about the slave himself. Slave did not acquire himself. Only thing is he still has a prohibition on him, which means he's partially not Jewish. Visur Lebre Leimaris. No, we're talking about the owner. Gufa Leikani Lei. The body is not owned by the owner. And there still is a prohibition on the slave. and the prohibition doesn't get inherited to the son to be able to remove. So according to this version of Ameimar, the original owner would be able to write a document. It's only when he dies and his son is inheriting, the son can't write the document. Amalei Rav Ashi la Ameimar, Rav Ashi says, Vakiyasu Rav Dimi Amar Rabbi Yochanan. What about when Rav Dimi came? Rav Dimi said in the name of Rabbi Yochanan that they forced the inheritors to write a document, and the inheritors can write the document. Amalei, it says to Rav Dimi to see. That was a mistake. What Rav Dimi said was not accurate. Rabbi Yochanan never said that. Amalei my tusa. What was the mistake that Rav Dimi made? It says Lo Yamar B'Lashon Shichur. It's because he didn't say that she should be freed. Amar B'Lashon Shichur Hachinami. But if he said that she should be freed, then that would be the halacha, which means that if the master did want the slave to be free, then the inheritors would be able to free him. Amalei Anakad Rav Shmuel Bar Yehuda Sfirli. I hold like Rav Shmuel Bar Yehuda. Now Rav Shmuel Bar Yehuda said that we do have the inheritors free the slave.
Could a master free a slave just not to perform a mitzvah or anything like that, just because he wants
It's a prohibition, but the slave goes free.
yeah, but
Yeah, according to Rav Shmuel Bar Yehuda, there was no argument over there with Rav Ami and Rav Asi against Rabbi Yochanan, and the inheritors were allowed to set the slave free. Over there, in that case, it was actually a maidservant that gave the master satisfaction, right? And so the master said that after he passed away, they should set her free. The thing is that it wasn't like in the middle. It wasn't like, see, in the case of what the Gemara is assuming here is that when Reb Dimi said on his deathbed, he said, "Don't work her hard." The Gemara is assuming that he's already setting her free from the moment even before he dies. Only thing is, that was only a monetary freedom. That wasn't an actual document that would make her Jewish. So then the inheritors have to write the document. So we said that was a mistake because Rabbi Yochanan never said it with the expression of shichur. He said, "Don't work her hard." It doesn't mean that he's setting her free. He's just taking off some sort of maybe she's still a slave. Just give her light work. But let's say he would have said set her free, so then that could have been different. So then the Gemara says that doesn't matter because he holds like Reb Shmuel Bar Yehuda that says that either way he's allowed to write the document afterwards. Right. That's how they argued on it. Bami and Rabasi argued on Rav Dimi, and they said that doesn't work because maybe she just means that not to work her hard, but without freeing her. Oh, okay. Okay.
They free her because
Rav Shmuel Bar Yehuda said that it was acceptable. So who discarded the Avdi? There was a city of slaves. Where was that?
there is a lot of them.
How do you know Middle Persia?
language,
Middle Persian language.
Discarta? Discarta is the name of a city?
Oh, gosh.
meaning uninherited plot of land.
It means a place. It means a city. It's not a name of a city. The Avdi that had slaves. There's Dabin Leivdi Kechavim. All those slaves were sold to a non-Jew, which was a problem. You weren't supposed to sell your slave to a non-Jew. They were Jewish slaves. They were sold to a non-Jew. Kalu Marvasa Basrai. The non-Jewish owners died. Asalakami de Ravina, the slaves come to Ravina Amalu. So the Ravina says to them, Zilo Ahadra Abnei Marvasa Kamai. Go back to the original owners who have also passed away. To go to their children. Get Gita de Chirusa, and they should write for you a document of manumission. Amli Rabbanan Ravina. Rabbanan said, they said to Ravina, Amemar says, how could the original owners write a document? They died, and what they inherit to their children is not the value and not the ritual part. Amalu anak Rav Dimi severely says, don't worry about that. I hold like Rav Dimi that said that the inheritors were allowed to write a document. Amrulay, they said to Ravina, Rav Dimi to Usi, but we said Rav Dimi made a mistake. Amalu mai to Usa. What was the mistake? The Amr Balash and Shichar, that he didn't say in the expression of freedom. Amr Balash and Shichar and Hachanami. But if he would have used an expression of Shichar, then that would have worked. Which means what happened here? They were sold. The original owner didn't say that they're free. They just said that they're sold. Yeah. So how does this connect to if you would have said Shichar? So, okay, I don't know. The halacha is like Ravina, which was that the original owner, the original owner's children were allowed to set the slave free,
Even though the fathers had sold them.
even though the fathers had sold them. Somehow, the selling of the slave was as if they're getting rid of the money aspect of it, but the ritual aspect was still there, which is similar to an expression of freedom. Yeah, because they were sold to Gentiles. Who of the debate Shrei, there was a slave that belonged to two people. One of them got up and freed half of him. Amar Idach, the other one says, oh no, the sages are going to hear about this and they're going to remove the slave from me. You know, there was the rule that if a slave is half free, he forced the other owner to free the slave. So he does a trick. He gives the slave over to his son that's still a child. A child can't really give. He can receive, but he can't give out. He doesn't have that ability. So if that's the case, the Beis Din will never be able to extract this slave from him. They sent a question. Rabbi Yosef, the son of Rava, sends the question to Rav Papa. Rav Papa was a student of Rava. Says, Shalach Lei responded, exactly as he did, that's what you should do back to him. You should pay him on his head what he did. We know that children like money. They like change. They like to buy ice creams. So what we'll do is we'll set up a caretaker, which means we'll set up someone that will evaluate the value of the slave. Then you go to we'll make the jingle, the coins,
Right.
And the child was going to be interested in the coins, and because of Lagita the Chirus El Shmei, and we can write a document for the child, for the freedom of the slave on behalf of the child. which means that even though a child can't really give as a gift, but the child can also do some sort of business, a small change business. So he can do this. Okay,
Give him the money, kid.
and then you write a document to free the slave on his behalf. Basically, we can get the slave free, even though there's a
להראות לחבר'ה איפה שאני נמצא.
wow.
כן.
Wow, do you see that?
Who's that?
That's Maisha's. That's where they are in these hills. Where is that exactly? What is that, Maisha?
Hold on, I'll tell you. It's Har Tavor. Har Tavor is in the background there.
Uh-huh.
And down here is the Kinneret.
Yeah, it looks like it. I was gonna say that's Canary, right?
Look at that.
Woo!
Wow.
Mikvah time.
Look at that.
Mikvah time.
Very nice.
Go drink
Okay.
the well of Miriam. Go drink the well of Miriam.
Okay, let's leave it over here at Tanur Rabbanan.
Okay, sorry.
Ezra Hashem.